In this video, we're going to look at how to manipulate the visual aspect of D3 elements, such as the attribute, the styles, and also how to assign classes to elements so that you can more easily select and change them. The first tool you may want to use is the .attribute command. So it allows you to change attributes such as the xy coordinates, the width and height, the fill color, and so on. And to use it, you can call it on like a circle element or on like a group element, as in shown below, group.attribute x, and then you set the x coordinate to 5. So as mentioned before, you may not want to apply or to change the attribute of every element one by one. So you can do it in the functional programming style. So suppose here we have a data point 10, 8, and 12.2. And you want to map this to a series of rectangles. So we're already showing you in the middle what we're going to get. So we have 3 bars, and the heights are based on our data point. So what we'll do here is use a command or define the function return d.size. So that is a way for us to pull out the size attribute from our input data and assign that to the height of the bar. So text in SVG is not very well designed, so you will need to work with it, unfortunately. So here's some caveats that we want to point out. And often, these things are things that you just need to memorize or to keep referring back to. So to specify text in D3, you will use the .text command, and then put the text that you want to create. And you can set the x and y attribute of the text block. And something that's confusing is that depending on where you set the text anchor and dominant baseline, you can have very different looking text. So for text anchor, we have 3 possibilities: start, middle, and end, and dominant baseline, nothing, hanging, and middle. So what are they? So why are they so confusing? So here's an example. For text anchor, if you do not change the default then is on the left side. So we call it start. So that's basically our 0 and 0 coordinate for the text block. And similarly for the baseline, if you do not do anything, then it's at the lower left. But you can also change it to the middle or hanging. So let's say if you want to change the hanging, then the top left becomes a 0, 0 point. So here is an example to illustrate why it's confusing to work with text. Because it's dependent on what text anchor you're going to pick. For example, here we're showing 3 pieces of text. All of the x coordinate are set to 50. But depending on the text anchor, let's say the middle one, we set it to text anchor to middle, then it gets shifted to the left. And similarly, if we use text anchor to end, then it's even shifted more to the left. So that means you can end up having very different looking text, and it can be confusing to a lot of people because they say, oh, I have the same x coordinate, but how come my text is shifted? So the next tool you might want to use is the .style function. So like attribute, it is for styling things. And it's great for putting in CSS styling. For example, you can use .style, and then you say property 1, change to value 1. And similar to .attribute, you can also add function or use function to determine what the value is. So that means you can change a group of elements, for example, based on, say, all the data points, and then you have the function to loop through all the data points. So the unfortunate thing about style is that you will need to remember when to use .style and when to use .attribute. For example, here for text, .attribute, you can use it to set the text block's x and y coordinate, while you need to use the .style to change the dominant baseline and text anchor. So unfortunately, you really need to remember when to use .style and .attribute. There's not really a good way to go around it. And sometimes you need to select different visual elements, or you define different elements. And how do we do that? Let's say we have 2 kinds of circles when we want to be able to distinguish between them. So this is done through what we call classing. So we've already seen some example previously in the overview of D3. So here more concretely, we see through JavaScript what you're going to do. So let's say here we have 2 groups of circles. One is blue circle, the other is the red circle. And what you can do is to use the .class function, and you first select the group of elements you want to assign the class to, and then you will invoke .class and then you assign the class name blue circle and say true. So true meaning you want the class to be assigned. If it's false, then you want the class to be removed. So once you've assigned the name blue circle to all those circles, then later on, what you can do, as it's shown in the last line here, is you can say do select all dot blue circle dot, because we're calling a class, and select all dot blue circle, and that's allow you to change all their color and other kind of attributes. In this video, we look at some of the helpful functions such as .style and .attribute and how to use them to change the visual appearance of your elements.